Welcome back to Monday Morning Messages, and this is part 2 on Hinduism. As I've said last week, and please make sure you listen to all of these in order, but it won't make sense if you don't. Hinduism is not a proselytizing religion. It doesn't try to get you to believe what they believe. And in fact, the number of beliefs in Hinduism seems to be almost endless. It's a very, very diverse religion. In fact, one author, a Swami, in fact, one of the religious teachers, says, quote, Hinduism is not one religion, but a collection of ancient religious traditions from the Indian subcontinent. But there are some things that most of the Hindu groups, the way they break down into different denominations within themselves, they would agree upon, and we need to talk about those. We need to talk about karma, reincarnation, and caste. Now, caste is a system that is a horrible, horrible system. And India officially recognizes that there are 4 levels of humanity, but it's tied into karma and reincarnation. So let's talk about that. Karma, we throw that word around a lot. You know, somebody speeds past you, passes you on the right on the berm, and then you see that they've run into a street sign 2 blocks down, and you go, well, karma. Karma is actually a pretty terrible thing, and especially from the Christian viewpoint. Karma is a dualistic philosophy, which means that the universe balances out. Good and evil has to balance out. If you toss out good, then good returns to you. If you toss out evil, then evil returns to you. It will find its way back to you. And there are many expressions about that which I can't use because, generally speaking, they have words in them that is a Christian pastor probably shouldn't be saying on YouTube. So that said, how does that figure into the caste system and to reincarnation? If you go to a place that believes in karma, reincarnation, and has at least those 2, even if it doesn't have a caste system. And once again, India has outlawed the caste system, but the culture and the attitudes of people, it's going to take a lot longer to change. The law changed, but changing people takes longer. So in many ways, the caste system is still a very, very live and living thing there. Let's say that I am born to a poor family and I have a club foot, a cleft palate. I'm not going to be able to find work. There's no hospital out there that's going to want to grab me and fix me because I was born to the low caste. And that means I must have done something to deserve that. I must have, in a previous life, cast out so much evil that now I'm paying for that evil. So I am put out on the streets to beg. And as I'm begging, I try to be the best beggar I can be. But a lot of people don't give anything. They're afraid to really help. They don't look over and else to say, listen, there's a surgeon. We can do this. In Christian countries, we do that. We say, let's fix this. Even if you don't have insurance, they're going to work on that club foot. They're going to work on the cleft palate. But over there, not. Why not? Because if you do not pay for what you did in a previous life, then you have to repeat it. You'll just be born into another miserable circumstance. Whether human or in many Hindu teachings, not all by any stretch, into some form of an animal and suffer in that way. You therefore must be allowed to pay for your sins in a previous life. That's why if you have been abused, you don't find a whole lot of people running to help you. Now, again, I'm speaking in very wide brushes here because there are certainly Indian Hindu communities that would rush to help somebody, but we all have read the news. We know the crime statistics. We know the warnings given to travelers. It is, while India is generally a safe country, it is not a safe country entirely. A lot of attacks on women, a lot of problems with lone travelers being robbed, a lot of scams, ton of scams. And the thing is with them, within Hinduism, it's not Indians. We're not talking about a race here. We're talking about a religion. Within Hinduism, If you fall for a scam, that meant that you needed to fall for a scam because you're paying now for something you did wrong later. Also, if you're a scammer, you're probably going to have to pay for that in a future life. Confused? Well, the whole point is that you've got to keep being reborn and reborn and reborn, and hopefully rising, hopefully doing better, next time doing better. These countless reincarnations are rather like the chakras, which are these little circles that start down in your hips and go all the way up through your head. That you start low and you work your way all the way up. If you get all the way up, you are at one with the one God Brahman. You have merged your consciousness. And by the way, they're one God. We need to say that real quick. Is not like our one God. It is not a personal God who knows you, loves you, counts the hairs on your head, and has great dreams for you, great plans for you. None of that. It is the God that is everything and all things at the same time. Not pantheistic, but panentheistic. It's pantheistic means everything is God. The tree is God, the cat is is God, all of that. Panentheistic means a God which is everything. It surrounds everything, permeates everything. And therefore, you'll see a rock in a stream that's a God to them. You'll see a particular tree or the like. So it's a different kind of concept. And all of those are, the rock is not really all of God. It is merely a representation to them of their God. So you have to keep piling up the good stuff until it weighs down the cosmic scales enough to where when you're reincarnated next, then you're a little bit higher. Now that explains some of the caste system arrogance. The Brahmins at the very top have traditionally, and again, this is changing, and that's the thing about Hinduism. Hinduism is not afraid of change, but it's a very slow grind. The Brahmins very much look down upon the untouchables, upon any of the other castes, because they have, through countless reincarnations, arrived where they are. So you understand, karma is what you deserve because of what you've done before in other lives. And you must work out your karma by living dharma, living a righteous life here on earth. If you live enough of them, you will eventually merge into the cosmic consciousness. That's actually a term used by a Western writer about Hinduism, and Hinduism embraced it. The cosmic consciousness, and you will be one. You will achieve enlightenment, although I must warn you that that means something slightly different in Buddhism. And Buddhism came out of Hinduism. So did Jainism. And in case you're wondering, yes, we're going to talk about those too. Especially since Buddhism has gotten some traction in the West. We need to talk about it. Jainism, not so much, but we'll talk about it anyway. I hope you're catching up on all of this. Now, here's the kicker. Do the Hindus you see in your community, do they believe there are these many gods, like an elephant-headed god, and Shiva and Kali and the like? Yes and no. You can be entirely secular and be a Hindu. You can be a non-theist and be a Hindu. It is the most open door religion that I've ever found, because it really wraps around whatever your experiences are, but the whole concept of karma, reincarnation, and like that's built in. But do your neighbors really believe that they've lived many, many, many lives? I think if you ask them, it's according now. If they're first or second generation, they might do that wonderful little head bobble that Indians do. You don't find it anywhere else. It means yes, no, I don't know, sure. It's wonderful. I wish we had expressions and little gestures like that in our society. It doesn't matter if it's real or not to them. It explains. It gives order. It allows them to understand this is happening and there are reasons, And these are at least the possible reasons. That's why they have so many different gods as well, because sometimes something happens and your concept of God changes. And so you think of, well, this is an aspect of God, and so it looks like this. And so that's why, as I said last week, they have 330 million gods, but there's really only one God in Hinduism. It is confusing. The fact is, and I must say this, I read a ton on Islam. I'm still reading a ton on Islam. Reading Hinduism was far more challenging to me, even though I read a lot of beginner stuff. And I read a couple of harder books as well. And I will confess to you, I got lost a little bit. But the writers even stress in there that you don't have to believe this. This is merely a story that helps us understand life and our position in the cosmos and will help us move up. So it is confusing, but it's not meant to be confusing. It's just meant to be very malleable. And so you can work your way through your world and find a context and understanding. Now, there is no heaven or hell in Hinduism. There's something like a heaven and something like a hell, but you only check in for a little while and then you check out. That's in most of Hinduism. There are some versions of Hinduism where it's very, very different, but they're all Hindus, and that amazes me. That amazes me that diversity can be under one huge umbrella. And if you ask them, how does that work? They'll just shrug, they'll do a little head thing and move on with the life. In many ways, I admire that. But in other words, in many other ways, it confuses me. So there's that. Patrick has confessed to you that there are some things that get him. The key principle behind Hinduism is cosmic consciousness, becoming one with Brahman. And that's done through meditation, it's done through yoga, and there are denominations of yoga. And in the West, yoga is usually used for flexibility, a little bit of exercise, a bit of muscle strength. In Hinduism, there are different forms of yoga to get you more in touch with Brahman, with the one God who is over all, in all, through all, and not a personal God like our God. There is no dogma. I brought this up last week, but there's no dogma in Hinduism. There's no one who will look at you and say, you must believe these tenets. We just know that those are what our tenets are. You don't have to believe that they are actually true. You have the freedom to, as one writer put it, steadfastly hold on to your path, your beliefs, and embrace them and live them out. Here's a quote, whether you are an ardent devotee or a dyed-in-the-wool atheist, Hinduism affords the same treatment to you. And if you aren't confused enough, congratulations. There are no devils and there is no Satan in Hinduism, but there are many, many, many demons. That's a real kicker. And if you've ever looked at Indian art, you will see the demons. You'll see they are very, very graphic, frightening. And because of that, people think, well, they have all kinds of devils. It's not the same. I believe it is merely a personification of evil we find in the world, such as that rock is not a real god, but it represents an aspect of the Hindu god. Then the evil which struck me, maybe it's just karma, most likely it is karma, but the enforcers of karma out there may be these demons. It's a very complex study, especially because since there's no dogma, there's no one source that says, here's the real story. There just isn't. So that said, if you don't know, I've used the word a couple of times, panentheism, not pantheism, panentheism. It is a God who is immanent within, and transcendent, beyond. In other words, God's not only residing within all things, but he is beyond our conception, and we cannot conceptualize him. So we cannot reduce him to a tree, but we know he's in the tree. These are your neighbors. They have a real advantage among religions in that they are very, very flexible and able to adjust to scientific inquiry, able to adjust to new facts on the ground. So even though we look upon the religion and we think, I'm saying Christians, especially those in the West, and we look upon it as a whole lot of fantasies and confusing fantasies at best, we also must give credit that they have not launched wars against other faiths. And in fact, other faiths are generally speaking welcome there. The biggest tension is that with Muslims, because Muslims are not content to just be a guest. They want to take over. And Hindus are not letting that happen. So as a rule, you will find Hindus are peaceful people. There are violent groups within Hinduism, but there are violent groups within every group you want to name. The main body of Hinduism is peaceful, open to science and inquiry, but also full of understanding of art and looking to find a story that gives them a place through this world. Am I attracted to Hinduism? Not in any way, but I can respect and understand the religion and be grateful that they are not antagonistic toward my religion. And that's a plus. We may look at another aspect of Hinduism next week, or we may move on to Buddhism. So hang on, the ride's not over. God bless you. Thank you for listening.